Hello guys, and welcome to SplitSecond. My name is Luis, and before starting, we want to thank everyone for their comments and suggestions. We want to keep improving week after week and provide you guys with great content. Now, on to this week's commanders. We have Sequeira taking a break from stacks to play his Thrasios Tana pod brew, me playing Cobblepott's Yarok, David bringing as a mid-range Muldrotha, and Baal with his adaptation of ShaperSavant's Tymna Kraum Opus. Looking at our starting hands, we have Sequeira, who mulliganed once and kept a flooded hand with 5 lands. He also has an Eternal Witness for mid-game recursion and an Incubation Druid, which can help him draw cards earlier with Thrasios, ram to a turn 3 Tana, or combo out if he finds Freed from the Real or Vigian Graft Mage. My hand is very powerful, even with only 1 land. Mystic Remora and Sylvan Library can draw me more cards. Deathrite Shaman will likely ramp me to Tomb and interacts with Muldrotha's Grave. Worldly Tutor can seek out Protean Hulk to pair with my Flash and push me ahead. There's also Nature's Claim to interact with the board. Like Sequeira, David's hand is a bit slow, with 3 lands, Grave Interaction, and Siren Storm Tamer, to possibly protect the Oko in his hand. He also has a Tassiker to protect him and fuel his grave later in the game. Finally, Baal has a hand that allows him to proactively cast an early Kraum or Tymna, thanks to Soul Ring and Mana Crypt. He can reduce everyone's tutor potential with Aven Mind Sensor, and also has a Flusterstorm to protect him or to stop an early game attempt at winning. Time to play it out. Sequeira starts by asking if 2 of us want to concede so his Spire Garden enters tapped. We decline, so he plays it and passes the turn. On my turn, I play the Exotic Orchard, that's how you pronounce it, Sequeira, and cast a Deathrite Shaman before passing. Now that it's David's turn, he plays his Fabled Passage and passes. On Baal's turn, he plays a Scalding Tarn. He follows it with a Mana Crypt, which he taps for 2, playing a Soul Ring. He then goes deeper with a Grim Monolith. With this, he ends his turn. Sequeira's second turn begins with a mistake that we didn't realize until the editing. He plays a Snow-Covered Island, a recently drawn Mana Crypt, and casts Tana without the correct mana symbols. However, since he also has a Forest and an Exotic Orchard in his opening hand, and there were no follow-ups where the basic land mattered, we still chose to publish this video. I think David and I were excited about our next turns, and since Baal is colorblind, he wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the 2 lands. On my turn, I draw a card and decide to pass to David, eyeballing his Fabled Passage. Before my turn ends, David cracks his fetch and things get really exciting. Baal decides to respond by fetching a Tundra with his Scalding Tarn. Then, he casts Aven Mind Sensor by tapping his Grim Monolith and the dual land, attempting to set David behind in the process. However, now that there are lands in graveyards, I can respond to Aven Mind Sensor by removing the Fabled Passage from David's grave and cast a Flash with the Hulk I just updecked. Now, in Cobblepott's list, Flash and Hulk is used as a massive utility combination. I use it to get Cloud of Fairies to untap my land, a Collector Oof to set Sequeira and Baal behind, and a Bloom Tender. With my untapped land, I cast a Worldly Tutor and put a Notion Thief on top of my library. After this huge turn, David ends up unable to find a basic land off the top 4 cards of his library, meaning that I'm the biggest threat right now. On David's turn, he sighs and plays a Swamp before passing. Baal wins the Mana Crypt flip. Then he plays a tapped Watery Grave and decides not to attack to reduce the chances of getting hit by Tana. He passes. Sequeira, following Baal's lead, also wins the Mana Crypt flip. He plays his Forest and attacks David with Tana, producing 2 Saplings. He does this to assure the means to protect his Oko, Thief of Crowns. He uses it to turn the Bloom Tender into an Elk, reducing my lead and giving every non-EDH player PTSD in the process. After that, he passes. On my turn, I failed to draw land, so I use Deathrite to exile Baal's Scalding Tarn and generate 1 mana. I cast Sylvan Library. Afterwards, I attack Oko with my Elk and Cloud of Fairies. Sequeira jump blocks with Elk and Oko is hit for 1. David plays a Woodland Cemetery and passes the turn. Baal starts his turn by losing the Crypt roll. Then, he plays a Forbidden Orchard, getting Sequeira's disapproval point. He taps his lands, gives David a 1/1 Spirit so he can defend himself, and casts Rhystic Study. He also attacks Oko before passing. Sequeira wins the Mana Crypt flip. He then plays Sulphur Falls untapped, attacks Baal with Tana to produce 2 additional Saplings, and turns one of his Saplings into a 3/3 Elk. He passes the turn. On my turn, I draw 2 additional cards from library and keep them, paying 8 life. Then, I play an untapped Blooming Marsh and try to cast a Mystic Remora while paying 1 for the Rhystic trigger. Sequeira responds, tapping 3 mana for an Abrade, targeting Mind Sensor, while also paying for the Rhystic Study. Annoyed by the Oko, I attack it with Fairies and my Elk. Sequeira trades with his Elk, and Oko gets hit for 1 once again. On his turn, David plays a tapped Field of the Dead, Then he casts a perpetual timepiece to avoid discarding, letting Baal and myself draw a card to deal with Sequeira. Baal loses the mana crypt flip, then plays a Sea of Clouds and passes the turn. Sequeira untaps and wins the mana crypt flip. He plays a command tower and pressures Baal with Tana and 2 saplings. He produces 2 additional saplings. Then he uses Oko to create a food token. Finally, he casts Thrasios, paying for the Ristic Study, and passes. On my turn, I pay for the Remora tax. I draw 2 cards from library, keeping one of them and paying 4 life. I play Twilight Mire. Finally, I attack with the fairies to keep Oko somewhat in check before passing to David. On his turn, David plays a Soul Ring, paying for the Ristic Study tax, but letting me fish for a card. He passes. Baal takes 3 damage from Crypt, and now we know he spent all of his Crypt luck on our first game. He passes. Sequeira keeps succeeding with his Crypt 50/50s. He then plays a Snow-Covered Mountain. This attack, he chooses to attack Baal with 4 saplings, and David with Tana. The damage connects. They are now represented by tapped and untapped saplings, and dice for their quantity. Oko creates more food for Sequeira before he passes. At the end of his turn, I tried to Nature's Claim Baal's Ristic Study while paying for the trigger. I wanted to force him to participate more actively in the game, instead of letting him sit back and draw cards. He responds with Flusterstorm, triggering my Remora and drawing me a card. On my upkeep, Mystic Remora's tax increases when I decide to bury the fish. Then I draw 2 additional cards from library and choose to only keep 1. Afterwards, I attack Oko. On my second main phase, I cast a Necromancy as though it had flash, targeting my Hulk. Although he knows it's for value, Baal doesn't like the idea of me getting more free creatures and decides to use a mana drain. On my end step, I discard a Llanowar Scout to hand size. During his turn, David casts Nihil Spellbound, hoping Sequeira turns it into a 3/3 elk out of kindness. He passes. Baal loses the mana crypt flip. Then, he plays an Exotic Orchard. He adds 3 generic mana from the mana drain to cast a Blind Obedience, making Sequeira's attacks with Tana worse and finding a way to gain some life. Sequeira activates Thrasios, sends the card to the bottom of his library, and reveals and draws a Gilded Drake. Then he casts Tymna and uses the Exort to regain some life, and passes the turn. Sequeira loses his mana crypt roll, breaking his streak. He plays an Exotic Orchard. Then he taps 6 mana to cast a Peregrine Drake, while paying for the Ristic Study tax. The Drake enters the battlefield tapped, and untaps 5 of his lands. After that, he casts Eldritch Evolution, sacrificing Tana. He pays for the Ristic Study. Baal casts Swan Song, giving David a tapped spirit from his Forbidden Orchard. The song counters the Eldritch Evolution and stops Sequeira from winning the match. Frustrated, Sequeira decides to cast Gilded Drake, letting Baal draw a card and steals Tymna. The Drake also enters the battlefield tapped, letting him attack Baal with a Saproling for free, while Thrasios and a second Saproling token attack David. David trades his spirits with Sequeira's 1/1 token. 2 players take damage, Sequeira loses 2 life with Tymna and draws 2 cards. Finally, Sequeira uses Oko to turn the Drake he traded with Baal into a wingless elk. He then passes the turn. During my upkeep, I lose 2 life to cast Noxious Revival, targeting Necromancy. I also let Baal draw a card to Ristic Study. I choose to only draw 1 card from the Sylvan Library. I cast Necromancy with Flash, letting Baal draw a second card and putting my Protean Hulk into play tapped. I attack Oko with the fairies once again, and possibly for the last time, before going into my cleanup step for the Necromancy trigger. It gets me a Spellseeker and a Risen Reef, both entering the battlefield tapped. Risen Reef resolves first, but the top card is not a land. Spellseeker gets me a Demonic Tutor. After shuffling my library again, I pass the turn and discard a Quirion Ranger. David untaps and plays a Flooded Strand, which he cracks to fetch for a tropical island. He then casts a Seal of Doom, while paying for the Ristic Study tax. The seal keeps me and Sequeira in check, stopping me from potentially winning with Laboratory Maniac, and Sequeira from getting infinite mana with his Drake. Baal also breaks his Mana Crypt curse, managing to not lose life this turn. He plays a Morphic Pool and casts Gitaxian Probe, using his life, targeting Sequeira. He sees a Ruination, which scares him immediately, followed by a Kiki-Jiki, Incubation Druid, and Eternal Witness. Afraid of Ruination, Baal casts Winds of Change and uses the Exort to regain some life. He draws 3, Sequeira draws 4, I draw 7, and David draws 5. With his new hand, Baal casts Lotus Petal with Extort and passes his turn. Sequeira wins the Crypt roll. He plays a Tropical Island. Then he attacks Baal with his Peregrine Drake and David with Tymna plus 1 Saproling token. David trades a Saproling with his spirits. Both Tymna and the Drake deal combat damage, and at the beginning of the second main phase, Sequeira draws 2 cards and casts Fabricate, while paying the Ristic Study tax. He picks up a Sword of Sinew and Steel, knowing he can deal with my Collector Oof whenever he wants, thanks to Oko. Finally, he takes the fun away by turning my Risen Reef into a 3/3 Elk with Oko. During Sequeira's end step, I exile a Survival of the Fittest to cast Force of Vigor, pointing it at the Ristic Study and Seal of Doom. This way I hope to force David into using the seal on Sequeira's Drake, while stopping Baal from drawing more cards. Baal still gets to draw 1 card from the spell, however. David destroys Sequeira's Drake, and the force resolves. Then I use Deathrite Shaman to exile David's Flooded Strand to cast Vampiric Tutor, losing 2 life. On my turn I draw 1 card with the library and play Gaia's Cradle. I cast Overburden and pass a turn to David. David untaps and casts a tapped Sakura Trivelder, bouncing his Woodland Cemetery. Everyone but me celebrates when he plays a Wasteland before passing. Baal continues his Crypt losing streak. He plays his own Flooded Strand before passing the turn. Sequeira activates Thrasios at the end of Baal's turn. He reveals an Emrakul, the Promised End, making everyone sweat. Sequeira wins another Crypt roll, then attacks only David with Tymna, just in case Baal has an Ocean Thief, considering he's got a fresh hand and didn't play anything. He gains 1 life and draws 1 card. On his second main phase, Sequeira turns the Collector Oof into a 3/3 Elk. He casts a Soul Ring. Here he made a small mistake by forgetting that Soul Ring would enter the battlefield tapped. He would have managed to pay for it either way by bouncing a land to Overburden after casting his Emrakul, so I fixed it on my turn and kept going. Before Emrakul enters the battlefield, I use Crop Rotation to take Sequeira's access to the cards I saw with Library. I put a Simic Growth Chamber into play. David responds to the trigger and destroys Cradle with his Wasteland, forcing me to send Mire into my hand. He passes. Now that he's controlling my turn, Sequeira decides to try and destroy me, so he has less opposition. He sees that I only had Twilight Mire, Verdant Catacombs and an island in my hands. He forces me to lose 8 life to my Sylvan Library. He goes to combat and forces Cloud of Fairies to attack him alongside Spellseeker. The 3/3 Elk that used to be Risen Reef attacks Baal, and the 3/3 Collector Oof attacks David. Sequeira blocks the 2 attackers with my bird token and Thrasios, killing them. Baal blocks the Elk with his own Elk because he's only at 18 life with an Emrakul on the board. David takes 3 damage. On my second main phase, controlled by Sequeira, he exiles my Cradle using Deathrite Shaman to produce green mana and taps the Simic Growth Chamber. He casts Lotus Cobra while floating 1 blue and bouncing the Growth Chamber. He floats green mana with Exotic Orchard before playing Simic Growth Chamber. He bounces it to itself, getting 1 blue mana. Then he casts Banishing Neck, targeting one of his saplings, and uses it to bounce my Oof back to my hand. He recasts it, looking to bounce my last land for Overburden, while locking all artifacts again. David responds, exiling Sequeira's graveyard with an Nihil Spellbomb and drawing a card. Then he mills himself with Perpetual Timepiece, sending Tasigur and CDC into his grave. Sequeira passes to my extra turn. I choose to draw only 1 card with my Sylvan Library. I play Verdant Catacombs, floating 1 mana to the Cobra, and crack it to get rid of my horrible top of deck. I put a Breeding Pool into play tapped, generating 1 green mana to cast a tapped Soul Ring and go to my end step. David sacrifices his Sakura Trivelder for an island. On his turn, David plays Halamar Depths and organizes the top of his deck. He casts a tapped Sense's Divining Top and goes to his hand step. Baal cracks the Flooded Strand for a Volcanic Island. Then he casts Alms Collector with Extort, bouncing Tundra for Overburden. Baal wins the Mana Crypt flip. He casts Yawgmoth's Will, picking up his Flooded Strand again and casting Winds of Change. Each of us loses their hand, drawing only 1 card, and Baal draws 3 cards, plus 3 from his Alm Collector. Very low on life, Baal starts looking for a way to either win or survive until his next turn. He cracks his Flooded Strand for the Tundra he shuffled into his deck, and then, after thinking for a while, decides to cast Demonic Consultation, counter it with his own Swan Song, and get Extort while giving David a 1/1 Spirit. Consultation and the song get exiled. Sequeira untaps and loses his Crypt roll. Then he casts Cindervines to get Baal even closer to his last hit points. After that, Oko turns Alms Collector into a 3/3 Elk so that he can draw cards with Tymna. He attacks Baal with a 2/2 bird, a 13/13 Emrakul, and 5 1/1 tokens. Tymna is aimed at David. Baal blocks the bird with his own, and a Saproling with Alms Collector, losing 17 life. Sequeira draws 2 cards. plays a snow-covered forest and casts Inferno Titan, bouncing another forest to overburden. Baal takes 3 damage from the Inferno Titan trigger. On his end step, I basic land cycle Ash Barrens for an island. During my turn, I pay 8 life for Sylvan Library. I play an island, generating 1 black mana. Then, I exile Ash Barrens and get a 2nd black mana. I cast Yarok's Fenlurker. At this point, we had all but given up, honestly. With a trigger from Overburden, I float 1 green mana with Breeding Pool and bounce it. I cast Sequeira Tribe Scout, bounce my island, and pass the turn. David draws a card, goes to his end step, and Sequeira kills Baal by sacrificing Cindervines, targeting the Blight Obedience. Tymna is exiled. Sequeira wins his crypt roll. He kills me with his Inferno Titan trigger, while attacking David with everything because he forgot to ultimate Oko to win this turn. Still, David goes down to 2 life, and although he has a Massacre Girl in his hand and finds a Bloodstained Mire, it's not enough to save him from the Flying Spaghetti Monster. We want to thank everyone for watching this video and for your comments on our deck lists and interest in more split-second content. We're setting up a Discord channel that should be available soon, and, as always, we welcome any of your feedback. Join us again next week for a new set of commanders and more decisive plays. See you then!